Oki, itamix kanotoni. In Blackfoot, that means hello and good morning. My name is Siksika. That's my Blackfoot name, and it means waterbird woman. Alvine Eaglespeaker is my English name, and I really don't know the story behind my name. All I know is that it's in English, and my Blackfoot name means more to me, like the land here. The land means more to me. Everything about it is me. So my name is, it reminds me of who I am and where I am, and it also tells me how important we are as human beings here on Mother Earth. I worked for this Calgary Board of Education from 1989 to 2008, and I taught language arts, but my specialty was to teach the Aboriginal issues, Aboriginal teachings, our language, the Siksika language, and our traditions. I wanted our young people to understand, as well as the non-Aboriginal children, so they could understand who we are. We are the landowners of where we are, and to appreciate the people that have come to share this land with us. When I first was asked to come a month ago, I said yes. When I hung up the phone, I was like, what is it all about? What am I supposed to share? What is it that I can help with? So one of the things that came to my mind is water. Water, air, fire, and earth is very important to us as Aboriginal people. One of the things that I have learned throughout my grown-up years is that I've learned to respect these four elements that I've mentioned, because it was instilled in us that we have to respect them, and they're very significant to all of us. And as I grew up, I understood it a lot more through our sun dances, through our ceremonies. And it was explained to us a lot more. Our elders then, they were very strict with us. I remember going to the sun dance, and my parents would say, if you're going to wash your hair, don't wash your hair in the water. You take some out in this little bucket, and then you clean up, but you don't pour it back in there. And I used to always wonder why. And it's because of the chemicals that was coming from the shampoo and the soap. And so we learned to respect a lot of these things that we were told as young people. Today, our generation, our youth today, they don't really know and understand our values. They don't speak our language. We're just now beginning to understand a lot more things about them and why they haven't really got into learning about who we are and about our surroundings. One of the things that happened to us is, and everybody knows, is the residential school. And there I learned about sharing water so much, because 4 or 5 little girls, like myself, 6 years old, we had to all bath in one tub, 4 of us. And we thought it was fun. And today I think about it, oh, maybe they were saving water then. Maybe that's why we had to share the water and bath in one big tub with 4 little girls in there. Maybe that's why. So today I kind of have an understanding of it, and I hope that's the reason. One of the things that we also have is that our elders really respect our environment. Today, our ceremonies teach us to respect it for what it's for. They teach us about why fire, why the earth, water, and even the the different trees that we use, the different branches that we use. And this goes into a sweat lodge. Everything we do as First Nations people, we don't just go out and start cutting the wood. We don't just go out and start digging. Since the time of our ancestors, they've always asked Mother Earth, this is what I'm going to do. This is why I need this tree. This is why I need this willow. And this is why tobacco was a very important part of our lives. We grew the tobacco that our ancestors used back then. Today, we can't even grow tobacco. We can't even have a tobacco planting ceremony. And they're just used for ceremonies because of the water. The water will not grow. The tobacco plants won't grow because of the water. It's been so polluted, and it won't grow. So today, we don't have that ceremony anymore. But these ceremonies that we have, especially the sweat lodge ceremonies, a lot of people call them sweat baths and all that, but that's way beyond that. It's not a sauna. I've heard it. You go in a sauna. No. To us, it's a ceremony. There's a reason why mind, body, and spirit, you cleanse the whole parts of you so that you could begin your life again. You can start anew. And this has a lot to do with the Creator. We call him Apistutuki, the Creator. We also call him Istibatapiyo, the giver of life. That's how we understood. A lot of people say that the sun, we worship the sun. We worship all the heavenly bodies because there's a story to everyone. The constellations, the moon, the sun, the morning star, those are all important to us as First Nations people. They tell us things, they teach us things. The animals, the things under the ground are herbs. Today, there's not many herbalists today because our plants are dying too. They're not growing. Years ago, the plants are used for ailments. There's a lot of young girls that were taught, that were given the rights to go dig up these herbs, and they're shown how to use them. Back then, we didn't have hospitals or anything to cure things, to take care of our people. And today we don't have those. It's very seldom we can take our children, take them out by the river, take them out and show them, this is what we used. This is what our ancestors ate, turnips and onions. Today we don't see those growing because of the destruction that the river has, all the things that have been flown around and they land up on our shores. We can't even go in there and have a good swim or to use the water for the purpose that we used it for before. Even our berries, they're not growing as much as they should be because of the pollution in our waters. Quite a few years, I lived on a farm. I was a farm girl. I lived close by Nameka. And my late father was Mark Wolflake Sr., and he was a rancher, and he was a farmer. And by Nameka, we had family, non-native families that we adopted each other. And we grew up amongst each other, and we helped each other out. Our parents helped each other, and our fathers helped each other to take care of the farming. And these are people like the Watsons, the Thesons. These are the people that I grew up with. And when you look at a lot of the things that we do as First Nations people, a lot of people overlook the fact because sometimes the information is misinterpreted to mean something else when that's not really what it's all about. the values that we have, all these elements have a lot to do with us today. Like I don't have a watch because I can't wear a watch because it won't fit on this hand. But I can't even say, okay, I only have this many minutes to talk because I can't even see the sun. If it's getting to the middle, then it's almost time for me to stop talking here. So these are some of the things that our ancestors have taught us. And today, as we all know, when you're young, you overlook a lot of things. Yeah. Talk. Okay, I'm listening. But really, you're not listening. But over time, you get to this age where you kind of think, wow, now I know. Now I know what this is all about. My husband and I are members of a society, a very sacred society within our area. And it's a society that has it's been in existence for hundreds of years. And because of the residential school era that it's too bad it fell upon us, that it stopped because we're not allowed to practice. We're not even allowed to go to the river and pray to the trees and pray to the water and all that stuff. We weren't allowed to do that. But that's what we were taught to do, that we're supposed to ask before we take. When we're getting a bucket of water, we ask the spirits in there why we're using the water. We're going to use it to drink. So that's what our ancestors did too. We ask permission before we take. The berries that we grow, we ask. We're only taking so much because we need it. We need it for our ceremonies. We need it to get ready for winter. The animals, we ask to kill the buffalo, antelope, deer. We ask the Creator that we're going to use it for good and we're not just going to kill it and leave it there. Everything that we do evolves around Mother Earth. It revolves around the heavenly beings. And some people think we're crazy. Why do you have to do that? Why is it important? Well, this is why it's important. I was looking at this map. And when I looked at it, it reminded me when I was told as a young person, and I'm telling my students today, years ago, our territorial was right to the mountains, right to the North Saskatchewan River by Red Deer, around there, right across to the Cypress Hills, right down to the Yellowstone Park, Missouri River. That's how big the Blackfoot territory was. That was where my ancestors roamed. And when I look at it, there's just a little piece that I live in today. Just a little piece that we call Siksika Nation. And sometimes it's always good that other people within Canada that have come to our country, I'm always glad that they know about us and that they helping us protect our earth, especially our land and our communities, our water and all that. A lot of people from my reservation, they don't know anything about this watershed thing. Yeah, there are people that are working at it, but they don't go out to our members of the reserve to tell them, this is why, this is what we're doing, this is why it's important. And I can say that because I know a lot of people I talked to when these people came down about this watershed on a reservation, and I took some students over there. My students, there are 6 of them, they're the only students out of the whole reservation that came to listen to the presentation about the watershed. And I thought, the high school has over 100 students, but my school is an alternative school, it's an outreach school. And that day I think we had 15 students present. So I took half of them and I said, well, I'm going to take them to this. They need to hear about it. I need to know what it's about because I have a fake idea what it's all about. If I know more about it, maybe I can tell my relations. Maybe I can tell the elders about it and tell them this is what's happening. This is this group that's doing this and that. And this is why it's important. Because right now it's not going out. And this is a people, about 7,000 people that don't really know about it. And it's unfortunate that they don't. One of the things that happens to us as Native people is that sometimes when people come down to our reservations to do a presentation such as this, and because they're not aware or because of the terminology that's being used, what happens to them is they're just going to, oh, well, we'll just let them talk. They don't absorb it. When I hear presentations, and I hope there's others on my reservation that's like that, I always sit with the elders, I always sit with older people and tell them in my language. Because in my language, when I talk, it makes more sense. And I'll tell them, these people came down from Red Deer. We have a name for Red Deer. They came down to say this, and this is what they were saying. Oh, well, how come nobody told us that? How come they didn't tell us that's what... We could have a house full of elders, but maybe 2 or 3 will understand what's going on. The others are just like, they're just there for kind of like a field trip thing. So this is what needs to be done. And learning about teaching, learning about these things outside the reservation. I learned it from the people I work with, the Calgary Board of Education. They showed me a lot of things that I can access to the people on my reservation. And it's just like I came home, it's just like a building like this, and I'm looking through the windows and trying to see what has changed and what hasn't. And there's not a lot of things that have changed. And I'm just one person, so I cannot do the changing. We have what we call our chief and council that have to do, just like everybody else, you have to go through the right steps before you can really voice yourself. So when we begin to understand a lot of things, maybe then our people will start going back and learning about the ways. Sometimes it pops up, and we as young people, we're the ones that are trying so hard to bring back our way of life, to bring back our ways, our traditions, our values, to understand what the significance of it is to the next generation. I speak fluent Blackfoot. There's 2 parts to the Siksika language. There's the contemporary Blackfoot, and there's also the real traditional Blackfoot. It's just like saying English and Shakespearean language. That's what we have. We have that too. And once we understand our language, that's when we're going to understand our way of life. That's when we're going to go back and understand what Mother Earth has provided and still providing for us. That's when we go back and see the goodness of it. And that's when we're going to protect it more, like years ago. Our ancestors were nomadic. They traveled all over because they followed the seasons because of the buffalo. That was our main sustenance. And we have to be by our, even probably here when I was coming down the hill, I told my husband, just imagine, our ancestors probably put up their teepee here by the waters, and then they had to move on again. I said, I could just picture, my ancestors here. And that's why I think sometimes when you travel these areas, this traditional territory we had, we feel at home. Like I've never been in Rosebud, I've traveled through here, but for some reason, it's just like home. Like I already felt welcome. And I think it's because of our ancestors. This was their home years ago. So a lot of people look upon our ways as being, I don't know, just, oh, those guys are just like, oh, that's foolish and all that. That's what they said in residential school. They said it's hogwash. They said we're not human. And they changed us. They wanted to change us overnight. And sometimes I wonder about it, and I think there were a lot of our people that really hung on to it. That's why today we still have our ceremonies. Our ceremonies is what makes who we are. Without our ceremonies, our songs, because they came from Mother Earth, they came from the waters, they came from the fire, they came from the rock. As long as those things exist, right here, we're always going to exist as First Nations people because they're a part of us. When we have ceremonies like a sweat lodge, we have the dirt, we have the water, we have the rocks, we have the fire. Our sun dances, our fire never goes out 4 days. It never goes out in our lodge. It has to stay on. Even if it's 104 degrees, you have to keep that fire on. The water has to be spared because in 4 days, we don't drink and eat for 4 days because we're giving back to how Mother Earth, all the things that they have provided for us, we're giving back to them. After suffering, when we don't take care of them carefully, we suffer along. We suffer for 4 days to let them know that, yes, we know you're very important, and this is what we're going to do for you. Because we need you. We always have to give back. We also do these fasting for people that are sick in hospitals, the people that have diabetes, cancer victims, and they're not only First Nations, they're all people. So every July on my reservation, we have that ceremony. And at that time, just remember, my husband and I, usually it's the last 2 weeks of July, we're going to be there at our Sundance with no food and water for 4 days, suffering for you, suffering for your families, suffering for that you can have a better and a happy life, that you could have a long life. We don't only do it for us as Native people. We do it for all nations. And that's why it's important that we take into consideration and teach our children, the First Nations children, how important it is. And my granddaughter came home, and I had the water on because I was rinsing out a pot, and she said, "Grandma, don't turn it off." And I said, "But no, just turn it off and rinse your pot, and then dump it, and then turn it on. But you can't leave it on." So I'm thinking, maybe at that age, that young, maybe that's where it has to begin. Because here's this little granddaughter of mine telling me, "You don't run the water too long." And in our home, we try to make our grandchildren understand about the importance of who they are, the importance of what other people are fighting, what other people are lacking in other countries, how we as people in Canada are so fortunate to have what we have. And that's what I'm teaching my children, and I'm also teaching. We do a lot of workshops during the summer to teach young people. We teach them about our ways. We teach them about how they can interconnect with Mother Earth, how important that is not to forget. And one of the things is that thank the Mother Earth, thank the water beings, thank the sky being, Thank them they have given you another day, and you're almost to the end of the day. Thank them for helping you, because tomorrow is another day. In the morning star, we call it Opisuas. That's the one that wakes us up. That's the first star you see when you get up in the morning. That's the person that's very important to us, because without that, we're not going to be able to wake up and see that day had started again. Everything we do, it doesn't matter. Every different culture has an understanding of it in their own way. They have teachings about it. They have teachings about a lot of things. Meteorites. We call them little puffballs, and they're around here. You find them. When you touch them, they just kind of go into sand. But they're very important to us. When we find them, we have to give them tobacco that we've met them. They came from the sky for so long, but they're still here. And now I'm meeting you, but if I touch you, I know you're going to go away. You're going to disappear. So we talk to everything. Some people think we're going nuts. My father said, the trees, the leaves, the water talks to you. And I told my father, how? He says, well, you have to have a way. So we used to go, that's when we used to go down to the river, and we have our picnics and we have our swimming, and it was so beautiful then. Those are my memories of when I was a child. And so when I got a little older, I used to ride my horse down there, and I sat and I thought, how could the leaves and the water flow, and how could they talk? So I sat there and I thought, okay, I have to really, really believe. I can't just think my father should tell me his experience. So I did. And they did talk to me. The river talked to me. The river sang its songs, and the trees talked. And I thought to myself, whoa. But I knew how it felt. I experienced it, and I never forgot that. And I tell my children and I tell my grandchildren the same thing my father told me. And maybe in the future, they will understand and they will have that experience. Because everything out there, we as a native people, it has a being. They're a part of us. They're a part of who we are. The dipper, that's 7 brothers. I don't know what you call them, but those cluttered stars, they're brothers too. And there's a reason why they're up there. And the Milky Way, we call it the Wolf Trail. That's the trail we followed here, and that's the trail we're going to follow when we go to the next world, the spirit world. That's why it's so important that we as First Nations, that we tell these stories to others so that they could understand. You are from those areas too. You are from those. You have your own stories about it. You have your own interconnection when you walk on Mother Earth. I mean, I've seen people smoking, and it's like, and I'm like, oh, hey, So I stomp it out and I pick it up, and I don't even smoke. And I pick it up and, geez, don't throw your stuff. You're going to start a fire. Oh. So I can tell some that they don't care. They don't care what happens to this. Our ancestors, our elders today, talked about guidance. They talk about the spiritual guidance of our lives. They talked about in the future, the future generation are going to lose them, but they're not going to lose them. They're not going to lose all of it. And that's where we are today. I'm very young. And one of the things that a lot of people, I've done presentations like this all over. And every time I do a presentation, I never ever not thank my ancestors. The teachings that our elders have given us. Because they didn't come to me through a book. That's why I don't have this modern type of a presentation. Because my presentation is in here, my heart. And it's up here. I put my brain and my heart together. I know I'm not going to forget. So sometimes people say, could you make a copy of that for me? Of what? Well, what you just said. Well, weren't you listening? You know, if you're, all you have to do is just listen and observe. Listen, because that's how we learn. We just watch. All our ceremonies, we don't write, okay, step 1, step 2. Oh, excuse me, elder, I missed step 2. What do you do, step 2? They're going to turn around and they're going to say, you're crazy. Listen. We get scolded if we're not listening. And this is some of the things that the members of our society are very young. And they don't speak, I think there's only 5 of us, maybe 8 now, that speak fluent Blackfoot. Our teachers speak Blackfoot. Everything's Blackfoot. And imagine if you were in my class, if you're in a lodge and you're being taught and it's all in Blackfoot. I mean, my heart goes out to you. Because that's what happens to our young people today on our reservation. They don't know. And so because they don't know, they don't go out and seek the information. They just, oh, well, you know, I didn't understand it. Well, seek your information. That's what we do. There are a lot of our people today. There's 2 different kinds of elders on a reservation that the Creator put on our reservation. We have what we call the elders, the senior citizens, because the Canadian government said when you're 65 years old, you can get a check and you're considered to be an elder. And on my reservation, there's what you call traditional elders. These traditional elders have all the transferred rights to run a sweat, to run a ceremony, everything. That's the difference. My husband and I are traditional elders. But I have aunts and uncles that are in the 70s and 80s. They're only senior citizens. But that doesn't give me the rights to overstep them. I still give them that respect. So, it's almost time? So, I really appreciate being asked. And I'm really always so glad that our First Nations people are always included in things. So that way we could, because I'm going to bring back this information. I'm going to bring back this watershed, because I couldn't understand it myself. And it's been talked about. But I'm going to be one of the advocators to tell them, this is what it is all about. You ever hear about it again? This is what it's about. Because I want them to know. I want them to be a part of you as a group to be leaders in our community and to start looking at Mother Earth as being a very sacred part of our lives. So I thank you again, and I'm glad I'm here. Okay.
At the start of Alvine's presentation, I mentioned that she was here to provide us with some perspective on the interconnectivity of water with the earth, the air, and ourselves. And I think she did an unbelievably brilliant job of doing that, particularly from the perspective of the perspective aspect. I really, really enjoyed that. Also, the Watershed Alliance recognises people who contribute to the issue of water and water management. And so we want to recognise you for your work as an Aboriginal curriculum teacher at, how do you pronounce it?
Siksika.
Siksika. Okay. We want to recognise you for that work and for your presentation here. And I think your presentation particularly matched the title of this forum, One Mind, One Heart, One Watershed. So it gives me great pleasure on behalf of the Alliance to make you a Watershed Ambassador, and there's some stuff in here. And thank you very much.
Yes.